So why is this taking so long? Well, the stereotypes that came to mind when we first started. People think it's the middle-class white girl's disease, and that why can't you just eat, and that it's the disease of vanity. Not enough funding for research until we actually know how severe it is and what the prevalence is. Insurance companies aren't going to take it seriously. Lack of understanding in society between mental health professionals, insurance companies, and the average person. So back when we started, the first thing that came to mind probably involved some kind of cliche or stereotype, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with those because they're normal. We use those as schemas to process information faster. When you get in line at a movie, it's wrong to cut in line. You know that. So we do that, but it becomes a problem when we use those default impressions to project understanding on the people around us and not take time to actually try to understand what they're going through. Because it affects the way we treat our friends or family, and the way healthcare providers treat people with eating disorders. So stereotypes for women, only models have them. They're shallow, they're self-absorbed, they're only doing it for attention, they're being dramatic. Choosing to do it, they have a choice in the matter. It's a woman's disease. For men, it's male wrestlers, male athletes. They're probably gay or not straight. They're shallow, they're self-absorbed. Maybe they aren't masculine because it is a woman's disease. Well, let's see. I don't like reading to people, but it's the only practical way to do this. So my problem began my senior year in high school. I had a fairly major depressive episode. I grew very apathetic towards school, and my attendance became rather sporadic. I was sleeping less and less at night, and pretty soon my appetite disappeared too. I attempted to speak to a friend about what was happening. It didn't go well. I got discouraged from trying again for a long time. As time passed, my sleeping patterns returned to normal, and likewise so did my appetite. The problem was I'd eaten so little for so long that anything I ate made me incredibly sick. It hurt to be hungry, but it hurt a lot more to ingest food, so I didn't. Eventually, I started wondering how much weight I had lost, and with one curious step to find out, my bitter relationship with numbers began. Every day I would wonder if my weight had decreased, and I very quickly became obsessed with the caloric content of everything I ate. I started lying to my friends and family about my meals, knowing they wouldn't understand my conquest to starve myself. How could they? Worse yet, I knew they would try to stop me. So I went to every effort to avoid the subject of food altogether. I fell victim to a self-imposed isolation, with just my disease and I would watch myself get dinner with an irrational delight. When school ended, things felt like they returned to normal, and I thought everything was better. That is, until I almost blacked out at a concert, and I realized I was still being very conservative with my food consumption. By the time college began, I was restricting more than ever. Dorm life facilitated my disordered eating all too well, allowing me to be a ghost to my roommate and not have to worry about having dinner every night with my family. Sometimes I don't remember which came first, the depression or the restricting, but one thing was for sure. They were both present and they were both killing me. I watched my relationships with my friends deteriorate as they invited me out to eat, and I'd make up excuses why I couldn't join them. On days when I did go, I would worry about what I ate for literally days on end, and usually punish myself through more excessive restriction or exercise later on. It became so routine I had difficulty remembering ever having normal eating patterns. As the days dragged on, I became so consumed in my eating disorder that little else mattered. The constant unforgiving hunger gave me an unprecedented sense of accomplishment, which was only reinforced as I watched myself shrink. There'd be days when I would wake up on time, I'd go to class, get all my homework done, and never once feel inebriated by what was happening. I can do this, I would think to myself. Maybe it's possible to be what they would call a functioning anorectic. But then there'd be nights when the hunger got so bad I cried myself to sleep. My face lost its color, my eyes became sunken, my hands were so dry they were always cracked and bleeding. People close to me would ask if I was okay or if I was eating well. I always told them yes, but it wasn't ever clear who I was trying to convince, myself or the other person. At the same time, I had peers and coworkers who complimented my weight loss, and it's these conflicting views which were in a constant rivalry in my mind. As my health declined, I saw the sickness in my face, and it was satisfying in ways that I can't even describe. Part of me peered out from behind my eyes and was begging to have my life back. How could I or anybody else ignore that part of them begging for it to stop? All I know is that the hunger was comforting, and anorexia became the kind of friend I could always count on. It was right there waiting if I needed it. But like any addict, the more I used, the more I needed. And very quickly it started to feel as if no amount of using it could ever satisfy what I needed. some excerpts from a journal I kept back then, which I added here recently. October 25th, 2003. For reference sake, this thing started around March of 2003. College started that August, and then things got really bad when I started college. So October 25th, 2003. I went back to my high school to get my yearbook and my diploma. Anyway, I ran into a lot of people, mainly teachers I hadn't seen since June, and they asked me the same things. What am I doing? Oh, do I like college? Well, that's good. Blah, blah, blah. The small talk was really awful. I can't stand it. Aside from that, most of them told me I'd lost weight and looked very good. I don't know what to make of that comment. When I got to my house, my dad hugged me and told me I get skinnier every time he sees me. I just told him I didn't notice any difference, and he seemed to be satisfied. October 29th, 2003. I hate getting like this because it reminds me how unhappy I really am and how things have worked out, and also how reclusive I've become. I practically live on my computer. I'm not as close to any of my friends. My mind feels like it's at war with itself. Just one more example of how it can have so much control, because it often feels like the only thing it often feels the only thing I feel like I'm in control of, even though it's controlling me. Right now I think I'm satisfied with the illusion though, because sometimes I feel like it's the only thing that I have.